We'll take the foreplay as read.
I'm glad no one saw that. People might talk.
What the fuck is he on about? Fuck are you on about?
Inconceivable!
It's a free country, don't you know that?
I didn't know it was that free.
Don't make people into heroes.
Fuck you. I can live my own life in my own way if I want to.
Welcome to A Shilling for Your Thoughts, the random topic podcast where I talk with a random guest about something that they're passionate about or experiences that they've had. My name is Heidi Shilling. I'm your host, and I have a special guest with me today, Michelle. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. So tell us a little bit about what you're going to talk about today.
I don't have a birthday, and I think it's kind of interesting.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like it's a name, like your name. You know, it's given to you, and you can't really change it, and just gotta,
That sounds like it would make things a little weird because one of the first things people usually ask when you go to the bank or something is, "What's your birthday?" So, how do you not have a birthday, and what do you do about that?
I was found in China. I don't even know if I'm Chinese. I think I am. I don't know. And there was a note that was written by the orphanage. And a doctor just said, about 6 months from that date. And that's my birthday.
Wow. So you have kind of a given birth date that you can't really have, and you have no way of tracking whether or not that's really your birth date.
Yeah.
That's really amazing. And you're not even really sure if you're actually Chinese or if that's just where you happen to have been found.
Yep. Identity problem.
I was going to say that would be a really interesting identity. And so did you grow up in China?
No, I grew up in America. I was adopted by Japanese American parents and grew up pretty American.
Wow. So your background, as far as you know, is potentially Chinese, but you were raised in America, and you were raised by parents of Japanese descent. Were they here for a long time?
Yeah, my dad is full American. He was born in Hawaii. He's Japanese American. And he moved to California. And then my mom was born in Japan. She grew up in Japan for like the first 3 years and moved to California, and that's where they met.
Wow.
They couldn't have a kid, and they adopted.
That's amazing. That's a lot of cultures.
Oh, yeah.
So
thank you.
When you grew up, did you learn a lot about the Chinese culture? Did they try to incorporate that into your life growing up at all?
Yeah, they I can't think of the word, not enlist. I guess enlist, yeah. They enlisted me in Chinese classes, so I learned a little bit of Chinese before I went to go visit the orphanage.
Oh, wow. So you actually went to the place that you're from, or the orphanage that found you, we should say.
Yeah.
Yeah. You say that as if, like, is that kind of a negative experience?
It wasn't the greatest experience. It's not the fact that I went there. It's just how I was treated, I guess. They didn't know how to treat me, so when I went there, my mom and I, we dressed nicely. We didn't dress, like, fancy, but we dressed nicely, and the lady recognized me, which is really cool.
Oh,
and
wow.
She took my hand, and she paraded me around the orphanage in front of all the girls. Maybe like 12 girls came out, because China, they wanted the boys, so they got rid of the girls. There were about 12 girls, all different ages and all that stuff, acne all over their faces, and they were staring at me. And this woman held my hand and said, "Look what you can be."
Oh, wow. So she was trying to use you like a success story.
It took me about 5 years before that really hit.
Yeah.
Because I was young when I went to go visit. I was like, oh, this is odd. This doesn't really feel right. But when you're 12, you don't really understand things.
Well, and that's a situation you can't really prepare for, and what is normal in that situation.
Yeah, but I was glad that I got to go see whatever beginnings I had.
Yeah, at least it gives you some sense of, this is where it started as far as we know. This is as far back as you can figure out, so might as well figure out, go there and visit.
Oh, yeah, we went with a bunch of people in my Chinese language class, and there were a bunch of us about the same age for like 12, and We went with their families, and then we went to go see like the panda exhibit and what is that? The Xi'an, like the terracotta soldiers and
Oh,
went to
yes, yes.
Beijing. Yeah, we toured all over China, and then at the very end we all split up and went to our own orphanages.
Wow.
So it was a really great trip. It was fun.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that would be a really special experience because you've learned a little bit of the language, you've learned a little bit about it, and now you're getting to go to, where you're from. Did it feel like home when you were there at all?
No.
Interesting.
Felt like a total stranger.
Yeah, just
and
like...
I was 12, so... But I was such a picky eater. I didn't try many things. I remember only trying the Peking duck. I didn't like spicy food. Chengdu is... where that earthquake was, it's like known for spicy food, so I didn't eat anything there. I was the pickiest kid.
Oh my
so
gosh.
No, I felt like a total stranger.
Would you want to go back now as an adult to experience China again?
I think so.
Yeah?
I don't know. I still got to give it a little more time. I'm still recovering from that.
Yeah, you'd want to definitely that. I can imagine that would just be so strange because it's your home, but it's not your home. You didn't grow up there. You've not really have any memories there. You don't speak the language fluently. And then you're experiencing all these things almost as a tourist, but knowing that this is where you're from, that must be a little bit surreal.
Yeah, because I was found so young and I was adopted so young, I don't have any connection. Like, in comparison to the movie Lion, have you seen that?
I have not.
He was 5 years old when his brother and him had to go escape, and he somehow got adopted by American parents, and then when he was older, he tried to find his birth parents.
Okay.
But he had memories because he was 5 years old when he escaped his. I think it was India. Yeah, when he escaped. I don't have any memories though.
Yeah.
So he had all this connection, so he was obsessed with it, and he had Google Maps and everything, and he could find it, and he did, but I don't have any reason to.
Yeah, that's so strange. It's like, you're told that this is your home, but other than that, you don't have any connection to it other than what you have been told. That's really interesting.
And I haven't practiced the language either.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure that's something that, would be really difficult anyways, but if you don't practice it for a little
Mandarin
bit.
too, it's the hardest language in the world.
Yeah.
I don't know, English, Mandarin, I don't know, one of them are harder.
So did you also grow up learning a lot, I would assume, about the Japanese culture?
Oh yeah, plenty. My grandma lives in LA, and so we always went to go visit her and do the mochitsuki, which is like preparing the mochi. It's like an assembly line. All these ladies like pound mochi and shape it into the balls, and we sell it. In the summertime, we do the sushi. Again, the assembly line of old Japanese women. They're all smiling and cheerful, and we make a bunch of sushi. We pack it and we sell it.
That's really cool, actually. So you got to have that really cool family experience. It's cultural. It's family. That's awesome.
I had a great childhood.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Well, growing up learning about all those different cultures, that's amazing. Sometimes I feel like in the United States, we don't get to learn as much about other cultures, and you had it right there in your home. So the question...
I do my best to preserve that kind of culture because it's dying out,
Yeah, especially like the more traditional aspects, It's easy to want to keep up with the changing times, but sometimes some of that's really poetic and beautiful, and we don't want to forget that.
Yeah.
The question I would have for you, what do you identify as American? Do you identify as Asian American?
Oh gosh. I guess I identify as Asian American.
Yeah.
Even though it kind of isolates me in a weird way.
Does it?
But it also, I don't know. Oh gosh, I don't know.
So it's like that question, when you're filling out that stupid little bubble chart in school, taking a test, and it's like, what's your ethnicity?
Well, they make you say Asian American. They make you, you know what I mean? For like, purpose, for whatever, like the statistical purposes. But, philosophically, I guess I am Asian. I can't deny that, you know what I mean? But,
yeah. But it doesn't
I grew up
necessarily.
really American, if that makes sense. I don't like to use the word white because white it's a concept. I don't think it's a, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not really a race. It's more of.
I don't think it's it's not a style of living, or it's not. It's just what we created.
Basically,
as a
yeah.
society.
It's just kind of people from different cultures that all have the same skin tone.
Yeah, and I feel so bad for those people that are like, oh, no one ever asked me about my culture. And it's like, that sucks.
Yeah, it does for a little bit,
I
but
get the opposite. Everyone asks me about my culture, and I'm like, oh my God, leave it alone,
yeah, that I would assume that can be a bit invasive, especially if you have any sort of an internal struggle where, it doesn't just roll off the tongue. You don't just know how you identify. You have your own personal struggles maybe with that, and people are asking you. That might kind of bring up a situation where you're like, it's almost like a very personal question.
Yeah, and small talk, I like to just say I'm Chinese. That's it. But I think the way to preserve culture and to teach people about culture is to be a little more specific. And what I think I know is that I might be Hmong, Hmong,
Yes.
which is a group of nomadic people that have traveled through Thailand, China, and all that stuff. And the reason I say that is because I kind of look like them.
Oh, wow.
That's the only thing I can go off is that I look like them. So I'm probably Hmong. There are different types of Chinese. Like my best friend, she's Han. And
Yeah.
they're taller, lighter skin, that kind of thing. Everyone has a different body type.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So it's like not only are you Chinese, but you may be also a different, a very specific descendant. You might descend from the Hmong people, or, that's really interesting. Would you ever do like a DNA test or anything to try to dig a little bit deeper into that?
Actually, no. I kind of like not knowing.
Yeah, I can understand
in a
that.
world that we have to like find closure for everything, and in this situation where I can't find my birthday, there's no way you can find your birthday.
No.
There's none. It's just something that's given to you.
Yeah.
You can't cut off an arm and count the rings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You've got to accept it that you don't know. And so the fact that I don't know my birthday, I kind of like to accept that I don't know my race.
And that's
as frustrating as it is.
It's kind of interesting because it almost gives you like a different hunger to learn about different people and to imagine who maybe you could be, who you descended from, what area your parents are from.
Yeah, and not just me, just cultures in general. And if I'm going to make a shameless plug, I'm going to make it here.
Do it.
On Instagram, I do that because I came out to LA to be an actor, and I didn't know I'd fall in love with the food scene in LA because it's so diverse. You can find every little pocket of, not every, but you can find most pockets of regional cuisines in LA. And I've come to enjoy it and teach other people about that because most people, they go to In-N-Out when they come to LA. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't explore the neighborhoods that are being affected by gentrification, and therefore they're disappearing. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
So I'm here too.
Hi, this is Chris. He didn't introduce himself at first.
Well, you didn't introduce me. You're the host. That's your job. Christopher R. Smith here.
I'm a bad host. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, last time I was out in LA, Michelle took me to a what? I guess you could call it a cafeteria,
Ethiopian.
But what's that?
Ethiopian.
Yeah, that was the first time I tried Ethiopian food.
Oh, I love Ethiopian food.
But it was this great kind of it was like a cafeteria, but like there were just these different, I don't know if they call them booths or what, but just different cultures of food.
Oh, okay.
And just like all kinds of different, like it's not like when you say cafeteria, you think like mall food court, but this was different. This was just all these different cultures. And there was like a Mexican cultural festival happening outside while we were there.
Eating your Ethiopian food.
And yeah, eating Ethiopian food. And yeah, that was something Michelle introduced me to that I had never experienced before. So that was really cool.
Yeah.
It's called Mercado La Paloma.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Great little market in downtown LA, just south of it. And it's
downtown
a
LA.
cultural experience just being there.
Yeah, anybody that's in that area, you guys got to go check it out.
And just the multiple cultures too, just all in one
Oh,
place.
yeah.
Like you can just probably go from like booth to booth and just try so many different cuisines from just all over the world.
Well, my favorite place there is probably the Yucatan place, Chichen. Is that how you pronounce it? Chichen Itza?
Yeah, I think
Like
so.
in the Yucatan Peninsula.
That's really cool. Yeah, I've never had food from that region, I don't think. That's
A little
amazing.
on the citrusy side. It's really good.
I'm going to have to look it up later and
Oh,
see.
yeah.
So, did you think that possibly your situation is giving you a different love of cultures that maybe some people around you, some Americans, might not possess? Because you grew up with so many different cultures and not necessarily knowing your specific cultural background, does that make you more interested in cultures than the average American?
Definitely. Yeah. I kind of got lost. But yeah. It's just so interesting learning about different subgroups of people and what they've gone through, and the mostly on the food side too. That, you know, they cooked what they had that was available, and they kept it. They kept it as tradition. It's kind of sad that it's dying out now, but I'm sure, you know, I'm doing everything I can to keep it alive.
Absolutely, yeah. It's just other cultures are so fascinating. I find it strange when people don't seem open to trying food from other cultures or learning about other cultures. To me, that's something.
Well, it's a little scary.
Yeah, it can be definitely
Xenophobia.
scary.
You know, we're scared of the unknown. We like what we like, and it's hard to learn about other things that are foreign to us.
I think especially, unfortunately, here in the United States, some of that's ingrained even into, you know, what you're taught from a young age in school and the home, maybe, depending on where you live. That fear of the other can be so hard for some adults to shake that it turns into, you know, they don't want to admit it's fear. It's just, oh, I don't want to try that kind of food. Well, I don't really care about that culture because it has nothing to do with me. It's, you know, sometimes I feel like it's a very self-centered. We learn about our American history. We don't learn that much about European history, about different other geographies, about world history, unless it somehow affects the U.S.
Right.
And I think that's so detrimental. But whereas you grew up in a family of different cultures, you were surrounded by it, and it's not strange to you. It was never unusual to you to have, you know, that mix and then learning of different cultures. I think, yeah, that makes you, you know, that's really special that you got to experience that growing up.
Yeah, I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah. That's really awesome.
It's also because I moved around a lot. My dad was in the video game business, and so
oh, wow.
I had to be friends with many different people and learn about many different backgrounds, even if I didn't want to.
Yeah, and introduce yourself all over again and go through all of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exhausted.
I bet, but, you know, I'm sure in some ways you feel a little desensitized to it. You can tell people quickly I'm Chinese, but then in other ways you still have that little bit of mystery where you can still kind of wonder and imagine and, you know, think about it.
Oh, yeah, there's so much to learn about other cultures, you know? I'm just looking at the food aspect right now because, you know, that's what I need to live. But
yeah.
So many aspects of culture you can learn from the clothing to the language. I think it's so fascinating that Japanese and Spanish have similar pronunciation. They even have the same word for bread.
Yeah, I recently heard that. I saw a video of two people saying things in their native languages, and I was really surprised. I would never expect those two languages to have that much in common.
Right? Especially being like on the other side of the other continent, you know?
Yeah, you're you know, it kind of makes you wonder sometimes, like, how early were different people interacting with each other, you know?
Yeah, there's something with a lot of Irish folklore has a lot of parallels with Indian folklore.
Yes.
Really?
Like going back centuries, like when you would think like there's no way these people could have interacted, but there are a lot of like just some of their fables and things are almost identical. And that's kind of just, and no one really has an explanation for why.
The more you kind of dig into a lot of stories, religious or otherwise, myths, in different cultures, it is surprising how sometimes you'll see like a same pattern or similar storytelling in cultures that were supposed to have nothing to do with each other for years and years. And it does make you wonder, you know, how early were people interacting, or is it different? Is it something ingrained into people, that way of storytelling, or those stories? Do we somehow already know those stories?
The whole Joseph Campbell idea of the archetypes and Carl Jung and all that.
Well, you mentioned, Michelle, that you went to LA to become an actress.
Oh, yeah. I got bit by the acting bug.
You got bit real good.
Oh, this business sucks, man. It's so cutthroat. It's killing me.
So how has that been going? What's your experience out there been like?
Mostly I've been in the commercial world, which is really hard when they're saying, oh, we want Chinese. And I say, okay, I'm submitting this Chinese. And they look at my last name. They're like, "You're not Chinese." And so it's like, I keep telling them I'm adopted. Yeah, I'm Chinese.
Oh, I could imagine that'd be difficult, especially if they're going off of, you know, before they even get to see you. If you have to submit like your name and photo ahead of time, that might be something that they don't even give a thought to.
Right.
So I can see that being really difficult.
It's 90% looks though.
Yeah.
So sometimes I do get in the door, but a lot of the times they get a little confused.
Yeah. So do you generally present as Chinese when you're doing roles, or only when they specifically ask for that?
No, I submit for everything. It's hard though. It's hard. Mm-hmm. A lot of the times castings say they want a specific look, like a Caucasian, and there's nothing I can do about that.
Yeah.
I wish there was. I can't play. There are a lot of people who look multi-ethnic and they can play Hispanic, Caucasian, and I envy those people so much.
Yeah. I know some people like that.
Play ambiguous Asian. It's just the cards I was dealt, you know? Yeah. It is what it is.
So you're kind of typecast without doing anything to get typecast, just based off of the way you look.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think that...
You just learn to work around it, I guess.
Yeah. Do you think that it has helped you or hurt more than anything?
That what?
That you tend to get typecast, like they immediately just see Asian.
Oh, it's good. It's really good.
It's a good thing?
Especially now. Oh my God, because Crazy Rich Asians has opened the door. But, yeah, it's definitely helped, but it's not, because the way to get into this business is not to present yourself as totally unique. You have to present yourself as a type. Mm-hmm. So you fit as a puzzle piece in their puzzle.
That makes sense.
Then you can make your own puzzles.
So do you feel like now there are more roles that are geared towards Asian Americans or Chinese Americans than there would have been, you know, maybe even 10 years ago?
Yeah. I honestly think the demographic is much smaller, as in like what they're looking for. Mm-hmm. They're not really looking for Asians as much, I feel like, as opposed to other races.
Yeah.
And it might just be from my view, my blinders or whatever, but I still don't think being Asian is in enough.
I actually have a question about that is, when they talk about whitewashing of characters in media, it seems like it seems to be Asian characters more than other races, you know, not so much Black or Hispanic. What do you think about that? Why do you think that is?
Do you think so? You think they're more Asian characters?
No, I think he says that they get whitewashed more so.
Yeah.
Like
if Asian characters that they end up in
played by a white actor.
Right. If in the original material, in the comic book or the novel, they were an Asian character, and they end up casting a white person and just making the character white or Caucasian or.
I think that if the character is Asian, then they're foreign, and I think that's the issue that we think white is the normative, and we think everything else is not. Slowly changing, but it's not fast enough, man. It's frustrating. Yeah. Like, I love the show BoJack Horseman. I love it. I absolutely love this show. And Alison Brie is a wonderful actress. I do not dismiss any of her talent, but that last season where she's telling the story of an Asian woman who's trying to find herself in her mother country where she's never been, and she feels like a stranger in her own country. It just doesn't translate well coming from a white woman.
Especially, I would
just
imagine,
doesn't.
when you've had that experience yourself and then it's being played back to you, you know it doesn't ring true.
Exactly. And I'm here to change that narrative eventually.
That's what I would love to see, because there are some people that I've heard say things such as, why would I care about a story about people that are different from me? Or why would I want to see people, actors different than me? And I just think, why wouldn't you? When you walk around, if you're in a country that does have a large population of Caucasians or white people, why would you want to see the same thing on TV? And why wouldn't you want to take a minute to look at somebody who's different? So,
Right.
To me, I would love to see more diversity. And I think definitely we are getting better about that. There are, more shows, more commercials where they're using people of different races, ethnicities. That's wonderful. But I mean, obviously we can do so much better. I feel like all the time we still see scandals of characters being whitewashed by famous, white actors and actresses, when it's just like, but why?
Because they think that's, and honestly, I see it from an actor's perspective. You get to play someone who's not yourself.
Mm-hmm.
How cool is it to put yourself in someone else's shoes? But it's just, they need to understand that there are plenty of Asian actors that need jobs too, that want to tell these stories themselves. And yeah, Scarlett Johansson's a wonderful actress, but
Well, that's an interesting thing too and this is more about, cause like, a big example of what people would call whitewashing was the Great Wall, where it's, about medieval China,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like this big epic film, and the hero was Matt Damon,
Mm-hmm.
and people were saying that, like, oh, that's Hollywood racism. That was actually not Hollywood. That was a Chinese film.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, just Matt Damon is a huge star in China and around the world. The Chinese film industry is trying to break out internationally, and that's why they cast Matt Damon. And Scarlett Johansson as well. Even though that one's a little more questionable because that was partially Hollywood, but that was a Chinese co-production as well.
But again, you said that they did it to break into like the U.S. market. So
Yes.
It's one of those
Because
things where
U.S. stars are, Hollywood is they say America is the biggest exporter of pop culture. And unfortunately, that means white actors is what they're used to. So like in Africa, that can play, in Europe, in Asia, all over the world, South America, they love American films, but that usually means white actors. And that's why they cast those actors in those roles, because they're stars all over the world. And I'm not saying that's a good thing at all, but that's part of the motivation
we've
behind
been trained
that.
for almost 100 years on this.
Right.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the thing about that, is maybe if we were more diverse in our film industry, then they wouldn't have to feel the need to cast white people, because they would feel like people from their own culture were represented enough that they could just cast someone who's a star there and it'll translate. So you know what I mean? It's still a shame. So even though, it wasn't necessarily Hollywood racism, it was still an influence of it. And it's kind of that, that effect that...
Because Hollywood, some of the most liberal people in the world, but ultimately it just comes down to money. It's a business decision. A lot of those casting, but we are seeing more, especially from China, because they want the money from China because there's 1 billion people that live there, and Chinese stars showing up in American films. Like I know just the most recent one, like the Meg. There was I forget her name, but she's a huge star in China, unknown in America, but they cast her in the movie because they wanted to get that, that pull in China, because they wanted to sell it not just in America, but in China, because the industry is so in flux that they need the Chinese money. And we're seeing more of that, but still it's always, it feels like sometimes that can feel like, they're just doing it for business reasons, and disingenuous is the word, I think.
Right.
Instead of like they really want to spread diversity, they're just making a business decision.
Well, that's kind of like, Michelle, you mentioned that some actors and actresses, they might not necessarily stop to think about are they contributing to whitewashing because they're just excited to play a character, or, you know, they want to play this character that's different from them? And do you think that they do have, you know, some people say, well, they're actors. That's what they do. They act, they pretend to be somebody else. But do you think that there is a little bit of a responsibility to try to make sure that you're not portraying, you know, you're not taking somebody's story away from them if there is another actor or actress that could do that and that is their culture? Do you think there's a responsibility to do that, or do you think that...
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think Emma Stone and Scarlett Johansson are finally starting to understand it.
Yeah. You know,
I don't know about Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Did
but,
you...
you know,
I'm just curious. Did you see the movie?
Which one?
Ghost in the Shell?
No, I didn't see.
Okay, I was just curious.
I'm not giving them my money.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
And
I just don't. And I had no. I don't know. I like the original too much.
Mm-hmm. For Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah.
Well, I understand.
I don't know.
You know.
Yeah, I boycott those because I just.
Well, I think no one gave a shit about Aloha at all. Anyway, but.
I like Cameron Crowe though.
Yeah. Well, I think you should boycott things like that. You know, I don't think we should continue to say that, well, that's okay, because of course acting is pretending to be somebody that you're not, but people need to understand there's a difference. You know, you can't just show up, you know, in blackface and say, well, I'm playing a black character now, because we know that that's offensive. We know that that's racist, but yet you still have situations where they're saying, oh, well, instead of doing that, we're just going to say, now this character is white. And it changes the story. You know, it's no longer a story about a black person growing up somewhere. It's no longer a story about an Asian person or an Asian American person. It's different. It changes it. And it takes that story away from people.
I think that's the problem right now, is that they think white means neutral. And then if you change it to Asian, it automatically has a character.
Mm-hmm.
So Asian woman automatically is that nerdy, that lesbian, that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, she's out there. But if she's white, then she's a blank slate. She can be anything, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know how to change that. You just got to change it from internally, eventually.
Is that kind of what got you interested in acting? Was it that idea that maybe you could change it, or was there something else that led you?
Honestly, I'm just an emotional masochist. I have all these emotions and I have to let them out. No, I have a bunch of stories. I can't keep them in.
You just gotta tell them, you gotta share them.
Oh yeah.
So do you...
I just think people need to realize their privilege.
Absolutely.
And it's not a detriment to have privilege. It's a good thing. It literally is privilege. You just have to be aware of it.
Yeah, I think people take that, unfortunately, with a negative connotation, because it's that thing of, well, you're accusing me of having something you don't, but people don't want to admit that, yes, they have something somebody doesn't have. And yes, they didn't have to work hard for it or do anything for it. It was just given to them. And it's...
Well, America likes underdogs.
Right. You know, it's not a bad thing that you're born a certain way and you have a privilege. It's just you need to be aware of it and be aware that where you're coming from might not be the same place that somebody else is coming from. And there's nothing wrong with just stopping for a minute and thinking about why somebody might see something from a different perspective than you do. But, you know, unfortunately, I think a lot of people are still pushing back against that right now.
I feel for them. I really do. They're getting all this hate, and they're like, I didn't do anything. I'm just here. No?
Yeah, I think some of that hate, for me, I feel like it comes from when they push back. Because if somebody says, you know, you're privileged, and you say, you're right, and you think about it, the conversation can kind of go from there in a more, you know, understanding way, versus if somebody says you're privileged and you try to argue back with them, you know, you've clearly stated you don't want to learn. So I think that's where some of these people, they don't understand, well, why do they hate me? It's like, they don't hate you. They're just mad that you won't listen and you're still not listening. But, you know, hopefully people like you'll change that. Hopefully the more we see people of different cultures, you know, in our media, the more willing people are going to be to learn about these different cultures and the more normalized. And it's weird to think that certain people aren't normalized. You know, like you were saying, you're not a blank slate compared to somebody else just because they already have a preconceived character. Do you find like when you go to an audition, they want you to act out that preconceived character?
Like I said, when what I'm trying to do right now is be a character. Like I'm trying to fit. It sounds kind of bad. Like you shouldn't go for what they want, but you should go for what the character is.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. For example, if I was going for a co-star, they're looking for a specific character to set up the main lead, right? You have to deliver some of the expositional stuff to help the main lead. And if you can't do that the way they need it to, it doesn't matter about your race. If you can't do it, then, you're not right for the part, if that makes sense. You have to fit a certain puzzle piece. And right now, if they're looking for Asian, who's a nerdy Asian, then I would fit that piece and I would go for it. I'm not going to learn Chinese, but I have to, because I don't want to learn Chinese. It's a very hard language. But I'm going to try to fit, not a stereotype. I don't know what it is. It is a type, but it's not, you get me?
Yeah, so it's almost like, for now, you can't just bust in there and do things your way because you'll never get a part. You'll never get the chance to do things.
You have to play the game.
Yeah. So it's almost like you have to play into that, very specific, almost stereotype, typecast, that specific image people have of you so that you can change their mind. It's kind of funny how it's like you have to be who they think you are to show them that you're not, that not everybody who is Asian American or Asian fits that stereotype.
Oh my God, exactly.
Something
but
that
everyone brings into it,
ahead.
you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
So I think it was you, Michelle. Something that you posted on your blog that was brought to my attention, being predominantly white, that I wasn't aware of, like a stereotype I wasn't aware of, was it was a really interesting article about blue streaks in Asian girls' hair, especially in like action movies. There are these characters that are like, they're badass, girls that kick ass, but it's interesting. It's a certain type of character and they rarely speak is the thing too. That's interesting because if you think of movies like Sin City, and there's other examples of action movies where that happens.
Scott Pilgrim.
Scott Pilgrim.
I can't think of it off the top of my head, but yeah.
Right, yeah. I think Scott Pilgrim, it was called out in the article as being an example of that, but that I almost think in Scott Pilgrim that was them commenting on it, but that was like a trope that I was not aware of. Like I never knew that was like a stereotype of Asian characters until they brought it up, and then it was like, oh yeah, actually, if you think about it, that's a thing.
That character a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they want a quirky, eccentric girl who's probably a lesbian who has streaks in her hair. That's really what they want, because that's what they see Asian girl as right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's changing, but so I guess that's what I'm going for.
Yeah, I mean it's hard work because not only are you trying to do what everybody else who's trying to be an actor or an actress is trying to do, but you're trying to do it, with the idea that if we continue to, fit the stereotypes, then we can get to a point where we can change those stereotypes slowly. We can use TV that shows are accessible to so many people that they can be taught kind of lessons, cultural lessons and things without even knowing it. I feel like a lot of TV now, I'll watch stuff where I'll catch things and you wonder how many people catch it and are like, ugh, or they, maybe they don't even realize they're being taught a lesson, but I think our media is a really good way to get to people like that because it's fun. It's not something that they're sitting down being, forced to go to school and learn a thing. It's
yeah, you're enjoying it. You're having fun.
The family sitting around watching a TV show and they see an Asian character and maybe that Asian character is different than what they expect. The stereotype's not there. And it becomes normal because, you fall in love with that character and it's just normal that character is, you know, playing a different type of role, and hopefully that'll help kind of normalize in the culture here for people to not be so quick to stereotype, to judge, to assume somebody has to fit into that little, you know, puzzle.
Yeah, I think an interesting character for that's an example of breaking that kind of mold is on The Good Place. The character that plays I can't pull the name right now, or the actor's name, but there's an Asian character because there's the stereotype of what's that?
Jamila?
No. But well, there's an Asian American character that there's the stereotype that Asians are nerdy and always smart and kind of sort of bookish. Jason.
Jason Mendoza.
Jason, yeah, and he's a moron, but he's a lovable moron. It's a great character. He's very funny, but that's a character that normally you wouldn't see an Asian actor. I think like you said 10 years ago. You wouldn't cast an Asian actor in that role. It would be probably a white, you know, stonerish guy. And he's great, and he's hilarious, and great in the film. Oh yeah, Eugene Codera. Yeah.
So what is your goal? What kind of a part would you love to play, or what would you want to be in a movie? Is that your goal, or a TV show? What would you really want to do?
Gosh, I came out here to do drama, but I've fallen in love with the comedy scene. I would love to do a sitcom.
Yeah. Would you want to be like the star of the sitcom?
No.
No?
I think there's two types of actors. There's leads and then there's character actors.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think I'm a lead.
You're more a character actor.
I'm definitely a character actor.
I think you can have more fun with those characters sometimes. You know, character actors could be a lot more fun and a little bit less. I mean, even like in comedic shows, you know, sitcoms, I feel like sometimes the lead actor has to be a little bit more serious, and they don't get to have as much fun as some of the character actors. So I can definitely see that.
Yeah. They're the straight men. They're fun.
Yeah.
I don't know, but Awkwafina's taking on my role. She is.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually first met Michelle in the Sixth Sense comedy troupe. She was a cast member, and I've written sketches for them. And, so I'm kind of interested in pursuing your comedy career, because I know you've tried stand-up, too. How is that?
Oh, God.
How's that going?
Soul apart.
Oh, no.
I mean, honestly, I'd rather rip someone else's soul apart. If that makes sense. It's okay. I like stand-up. It's all right. I don't love it, but I want to get. The point is to teach people about adoption, because Hollywood's messed that up too. Have you seen The Orphan?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you know, that seems to be a common theme, is like using orphans in like horror movies or
just in general, orphans in general, like all the Disney movies, all the, you know, the kids, the main lead, they're always an orphan. Their parents are dead, or their parents are evil, or
you don't see as much of, yes, they were an orphan and now they live a happy, stable family.
Well, it's not dramatically interesting.
No, so it doesn't get portrayed as much. And that's kind of a shame, because I think there are a lot of people who have grown up being adopted.
So many stories.
Yeah, you know, and those stories are being silenced. And not only are they being silenced, but then people who, you know, are watching these TV shows and they're seeing orphans in a completely different light. Like, they don't really have anybody that they can identify with.
Exactly.
That's really cool that you would want to do that. So do you think like maybe someday your goal would be to have a sitcom where you have like a situation where there's adoption and it's, you know, treated the right way, but it's an integral part of the script? Would that be something that would interest you?
But it's like, there's just too many Asian women, not enough roles.
Not enough roles, yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is we all want to be able to turn on the TV and see ourselves represented. We all want to be able to turn on the radio and hear somebody that sounds like us. You know, it's that thing where people complain about, like, why do they want to make Barbies look like people? And it's like, well, when you grow up and none of the dolls look like you, how would that make you feel? The people that are saying this, they didn't experience that. Or they say, well, I'm a brunette and Barbie is blonde. It's like, girl, no. Not the same. It's not the same.
That's funny.
You know, so people that haven't experienced that, I don't think they can understand fully how representation can be important. And it's just not fair to silence all these wonderful stories, you know, and I really thank you for sharing your story, because I know we talked about in the beginning how some of these things they're pretty personal questions, and you probably get asked them more than you would like, and you have to share. So I wanted to thank you for being open and being, you know, able to share those with me.
No, thank you. I really appreciate telling you guys about this. Started.
Well, and I know you said you mentioned you had a blog. Did you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I talk about what it's like being an Asian American actress in LA. It's my name, Michelle.wordpress.com. MichelleNakamoto.wordpress.com.
Awesome. And I'll go ahead and if that's all right with you, I'll post that on the Facebook page for this podcast so everybody can find that.
Oh, and definitely my Instagram. You gotta find cheap, affordable, unique eats around LA.
Absolutely. That sounds like something that a lot of people would be really interested in.
Because I'm poor and I'm hungry.
So,
yeah, that's at Nakamobro. Nakamo Bro. BRO. Sorry. There's a nickname in high school, and I was like, that's dumb.
And now it's your Instagram. Well, that's awesome. Did you want to plug anything else or talk about any other projects?
No, not really. Finding work out here is hard.
Well, thank you for, taking the time to share with us. If you did, if you do think of anything else that you want to plug, definitely send it to me. I can go ahead and post that. I can share links to anything so people can get to know a little bit more about you.
Oh, sure. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Michelle.
What, you're looking at me?
I was looking at you.
What?
You have anything?
I can't really plug it yet because it doesn't exist, but I'm actually writing a sitcom for Michelle.
Oh.
And it's going to be very weird. But that's...
Try me.
Yeah, she's been getting weird texts at 4 a.m. from me when it's just some idea I had. So that's what she's putting up with right now.
Oh my gosh.
As I'm crafting the show. But so hopefully someday people will see Still Up.
Awesome.
And yeah, that's
awesome. So excited.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
All right. Thank you for listening to A Shilling for Your Thoughts. Again, my name is Heidi Schilling, and be sure to check out all of the other great podcasts on the Papago Podcast Network. Where can they find the Papago Podcast Network, Chris?
PapagoPodcastNetwork.com.
There you go. Can't forget that. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.